Okay, so now we're recording. All right, so if you have a transistor, transistors are the things that always give you the gain. They give you that exponential or quadratic change in current, and then you throw that across the resistor to make a V out move. So you always have some current generating thing getting thrown across the resistor. So if you have a big gain, you mentioned last time, if R is really big, then a small change in current makes V out move a lot, gives you a big gain. So if you're going to have something with a big gain, that means this is a big R, which means if something pulls current off of it, it's going to mess up your V out. You can't have a high gain circuit, a high voltage gain circuit, and still supply current to your next circuit. Is that okay? Any questions there? Okay, that thumbs up. So what you do is, since this circuit gives you your gain, so that's great. Now you've got good gain. Remember, actually, I should put that up first. For an ideal op amp, what are your three things that you need? You can type in the chat, or you can go off mute, whichever way you like. So what are the three things that an ideal op amp has?
The input resistance is infinity, so the current is 0.
Okay, R out equals infinity, or R in, sorry. And we just talked about R out. What do you want R out to be?
0.
0.
0. And what's the third one that you usually see?
The positive terminal voltage on the input.
Say it again.
The positive terminal input is equal to the negative terminal input voltage.
Okay, and that is exactly what that translates to. Where do you see equals V and minus? What is kind of the general way to say that?
The gain is infinity.
Gain is infinity, yes. So these are the three things we're trying to make our circuit do. And right here, when you pull current off of this and V out moves, that means your R out is large. When you change the current through your circuit and V out moves a lot, that means this circuit is considered a high R out circuit. So the translation of high R out again is that V out, if R out equals 0, then V out doesn't move when current is asked for. Kind of ran out of space here. Well, actually, just exactly what that says. And what's R in equal to infinity? What's that mean again?
No current flow.
No current, right, exactly. So there's no current into op amp. So this right here, since V out moves when you pull current off of it, this is considered a large R out. So you have to fix that. And you can't have a high voltage gain circuit and have a low R out. It's always going to have this high resistance here, and when you pull current through it, it's going to change V out. So this is just not going to work. So let's try. Let's try version 2 here. So we know that we need high gain, so we need that common emitter. We've got our common emitter. But connecting this to another circuit doesn't work. What happens is we use another kind of amplifier, and it may seem strange to call this an amplifier. What kind of amplifier is this?
Inverting?
This one actually is not inverting. If this is V, we'll call this Vx. What's V out equal? What's the approximate voltage from the base to emitter of a BJT when it's operating normally?
0.7.
0.7 or more generally?
VB on.
VB on. So if Vx goes up, what happens to V out? Does it go up or down?
Increases.
Goes up. So if the input to this stage goes up, the output of the stage also goes up. So it's not inverting. When you have an inverting amplifier, if you moved this up, this side would have to go down, and it doesn't. It actually goes up too. So this is non-inverting. Using that technique of let's do it this way. Where's the input? Where's Vx? You look at the transistor to identify the name. Vx is connected to which terminal?
Base.
Base. So it's not a common base. Where's V out connected to?
Emitter.
The emitter. So it's not a common emitter. What's left?
Collector.
Collector. Yes. So this is a common collector.
Professor,
Huh?
even though it doesn't get inverted with the second BJT, isn't it getting inverted in the first one?
It is. Yes, you're right.
So
So
wouldn't this
from
be
here
inverting
to-
overall?
It's inverting overall. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. So is that second one just like a buffer?
Exactly. That's another name for common collector is buffer. It moves the same amount as its input, but it's a little bit shifted. So
Okay.
yet another name is a level shifter. And the last name right here, so we've got, I should write this better. We've got a common collector. It's also called a buffer. It's also called a level shifter. And the last name, which is why we're using it, is an impedance transformer. So what I mean by that is the common emitter over here, when you pulled current off of it, the voltage changed. So that's considered a high R out circuit. What it's going to do is going to take that signal, and now it's going to make this a common collector actually has a very low R out. So what do you think that means to have a low R out then?
There won't be much change in V out when you're connecting it to like another circuit.
Exactly. So if something comes in here, you connect it up to another circuit, and that circuit asks for current, then V out really isn't affected. This circuit can ask for a bunch of current, and V out really doesn't move very much. And that's the definition of a low R out. Okay, next question is, why doesn't V out move very much? If you ask for current, it's still just like we had with the common emitter, the current's going to come out from over here, has to come through the transistor. That means that the current through the transistor has to increase. What's the easiest way for a transistor to turn up its current?
Increase its VBE.
Increase its VBE. But to change the current a lot, does VBE have to change much?
No.
No.
No, remember when VBE changes, the current changes exponentially. So for just a very small change in here, this can change the current drastically. So this node really doesn't have to move much. If you ask for more current, yes, it will move just a little bit, but just a very little bit. So it looks like V out isn't moving. And um, it still will give you this, to do it in a different color. How about purple? Than purple. And it will, however much Vx was moving, V out will move the same amount. It's just shifted by a VBE on. So you're getting the same amount of delta V. The voltage is different, but the change in voltage isn't. Let me pause for a second there. Is it okay when I say the change in voltage versus the actual voltage?
Could you explain that one more time?
So let's say Vx equals 3 volts. And your V out will be 3 volts minus your VB on. And that's, for this example, let's say that's 0.7. So that would be 2.3 volts. Okay. Let's say, call this Vx1. Let's say there's Vx2, and you change that to 2 volts. What's your new V out?
1.3.
1.3 volts. So this voltage does not equal that voltage. And a lot of times when you talk about a buffer, it means that the voltage into a circuit and the voltage out of a circuit are equal. In this case, since we're looking at gain, and let me write this up real quick. What's the official definition of gain?
V out over V in.
Yes, is this right? This is one of my pet peeves of always, but is that the actual definition?
No, it's the change in V out over the change in V in.
Yes, it's the change. If you look at this, your V out over V in here would be 2.3 over 3. That is not your gain. It's actually how much, when you change V in, how much does V out change? So
Okay.
for our circuits, we don't really care about the actual voltage. We care about how much it changes. And in this case, this is not a very exciting amplifier. And I'm doing hand quotes on amplifier. Let's see what the gain is here. So V out went from 2.3 volts to 1.3 volts. And what V in changed from? Oh, am I muted? No, I'm not muted, am I? Okay, 3 volts to 2 volts. So what's the gain of a common collector amplifier?
1.
1. So it doesn't give you any gain. All it does is take something that has a high R out, doesn't change that signal or how much that signal changes. And it buffers it with a shift and then shows a low R out. So all it's doing is taking a high R out from here and turning it into a low R out, and that's where the impedance transformer comes in. Do I have thumbs up on that? Let's see. A few thumbs up. Does anybody have a question on that?
Yeah, I have a question. So
Okay.
the resistors don't come into play at all
Not in this.
when calculating gain?
Not for this circuit. For the common emitter, absolutely. That is directly related to the gain. But for the common collector, and I'll talk about this once we get the whole circuit drawn up. During the quarter, I mean, this is the most basic, what I call vanilla. It's the most vanilla version of a common emitter that there is. And during the quarter, we're going to change this so it has even more gain and actually improve the gain stage. So this is called the gain stage.
Oh, okay, got it. So the gain calculation you did right there was for the transistor and resistor that are seen as a buffer in this case.
Yes. And the official name for this last part here is an output stage. Oops. Output stage. And the whole job of the output stage, it usually has a gain of 1, but it takes a signal from something with a high output and converts it to a low output, R out, sorry. Takes something that has a high R out and converts that to a low R out. That's its whole job.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. So that's good. We've got our low R out. We've got our gain. We've got our gain right here, and we've got our low R out. Turns out this has a pretty high R in, and we'll get to the math of that. That's coming up in the next week or so. But for now, just because we're doing an overview of the course, let's see what we're missing here. And if you've seen the videos, then you already know what's coming. But so we have our gain stage. And we have our output stage. And just as to finish the comment on that, ideally, this is a current source. So if you wanted to make a really good common collector, you'd make this a current source. And we'll look at that later in the quarter. We're going to look at how to improve each one of these stages throughout the quarter. But pretty much the kind of the blueprint, I don't know if blueprint's the right word, but the stages, the pattern for building an op-amp includes these 3 stages. So what's missing from our circuit?
Differential inputs.
Exactly, differential input. And if you've seen the video, again, no surprises here, but if you think back to 347 and 307, do you remember a circuit that had 2 inputs? A lot of you didn't treat the circuit as a 2-input circuit, but what was that in 307?
Was that a differential amplifier?
In our class, yep, this is a differential amplifier. It's often called a differential pair. And in all of our amplifiers, we're going to use this to get a differential input, two inputs to our op-amp. Notice over here on the op-amp, we've got the plus and the minus. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to generate that. Okay. And I'm not going to go into detail in this. When we get to diff pairs, we'll do this. We'll go through this in more detail. But this allows you to have 2 inputs. That's a little tricky. Which one is going to be the inverting and which one's going to be the non-inverting? Here's I'll give you one thing, but I won't justify it right now. When you have the 2 inputs, this input and this input, and they're balanced, it means when this one goes up, this one goes down by the same amount. And we'll just assume that for right now, that if one side goes up, the other side goes down. And again, without justification, when that happens, this node doesn't move. So if this node's not moving, what does this circuit look like right here? I'll try to put a circle around it. Oops, gonna change colors. What's that circuit look like right there? If this node isn't moving.
looks like the gain stage.
It looks like the gain stage, exactly. It's just another common emitter. So the differential pair is actually made up of two common emitters. Now for a common emitter, if I move this up, what happens to the output? If I move this up, what happens to, first of all, what happens to the current through the transistor?
Increases.
It increases, okay. And then that means that the current through the resistor increases. What does that mean for this node? Did it go up or down?
Goes down.
Voltage decreases.
Goes down. So is this stage, is this inverting or non-inverting?
Inverting.
Inverting, yes. When V in goes up and V out goes down, that means it's inverting. If when V in went up, V out also went up, that would mean non-inverting. So this one multiplies things by a negative number. I'll just put a -1 here. This one is non-inverting, so it's like multiplies by a +1. So to make V out, when the, let's look back at the ideal op amp here. When this input goes up, what happens to the output here? Goes down? Goes up? Let's say you hold this input, the inverting
Goes
input,
up.
it goes up. So you actually want, for your plus input over here, you want V out to go up. So let's try something. Let's move this side up. And if you're moving this side up, then this side goes down. If this side goes down, what happens to the voltage there? Remembering that this is a common emitter.
Goes up.
Goes up, yeah, because it's inverting. Common emitters are inverting. So now this goes up. Whoops. This goes up. What happens at this node?
Goes down.
Down.
Goes down. And then what about V out?
That goes down as well.
Okay. So what we want when we make our ideal op amp, we want to find the input that when it goes up, the output also goes up. So actually, I should put this in a different direction since we did down here. So for our picture here, V out went down. So we want to find the input that goes in the same direction as the output. We figured out that V out goes down when you move signals like this. So which is the non-inverting input? Is it the left one or the right one?
The right one.
Right one. So this would be your plus input. This would be your minus input. Okay. So with that, you really have the story of the whole quarter. We're just going to go through and make each of these stages. I didn't put the official name here. If that's the output stage, what do you think this first stage is?
Input.
Input stage, yes. So we're going to go through and this whole quarter is going to be about making each one of those stages better and better. A lower R out, a bigger gain, a higher R in. And that is really the whole story of the quarter. One of the last topics is seeing how fast we can run this. And for those of you that had me, for sure, all of these nodes have capacitance on them. And you have an R going into it's the R providing the current onto the capacitor. If you have an R going onto a capacitor, what circuit is that?
So high pass filter.
A low pass, right?
Low pass, yes.
Oh.
So turns out that every single one of these stages, in between each one of those stages, there's a low pass filter, which means any analog circuit that you make, there's a limit to how fast you can run them. And that's going to be the last topic of the quarter. Is the story of the class, does that make sense? Do you have any questions on that? Okay, there's some amplifiers that have a little different form than this, but this is the one we're going to be using all through the quarter. 3-stage input stage to get the 2 inputs and the high RN, gain stage to get the big gain, and then output stage to show to impedance transform and show and allow a lot of current to be pulled out of the circuit without the circuit failing. Right, good there. Then we're gonna try something different here. I'll post these notes also. Mail. Okay. So on Canvas, that's I always forget the name of that. I've posted some worksheets, and today I'd like to. I'm going to put you in random groups if I can find the. Oh, it's over here. Not polls, more breakout rooms. I'm going to put you into breakout rooms and have you come back. Let's see, there's only 10 minutes left, so we'll probably only get through really one of these today. But I have kind of 5 lists of questions to introduce you to the math. So I made the first one visible. So if you all go to Canvas, I just so want to say PolyLearn. If you go to Canvas, you should be able to download that, and I'm going to throw you into random breakout rooms. And you can call me. When I'm in one room, I don't think I can see messages from the other rooms. So if you don't hear from me immediately, I have to come out of that, whatever room I'm in, and then go into your room. So it might be a couple minutes, but go ahead and look at that. And what's a good size for a room? Like 4 or so? So
Yes.
right, so let's do that. Breakout room. All right, so
What? Oh, sorry.
were you
Oh.
able to, were you able to get the file?
Oh, what tab is it under?
It's on the actual course site. You may have to refresh it. Were you able to access the file? I don't see any thumbs up, so.
I was
Oh,
able.
there, thumbs up. Okay,
It
yeah.
was at the very bottom.
Okay. I'll move a few people around that have requests here. Then, so you may magically like move to another room, but try to make this work. Okay, here we go. Hi, baby. I know, sweetheart. I know, sweetheart. I know, my love. Hey. Hi, baby. Hi, baby. Oh, shoot. I didn't do that, did I? I know, love. Hi, Sean. I'm
What
not
up?
sure if I'm muted. I'm not muted. Did you get through the practice?
The homework?
Oh, somebody's asking for a. I'm off to a breakout room. Are you assigned to a breakout room?
Oh, I think I'm in the next section.
Oh, okay, that's what it's going on. Hey there.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good. We're on number 3,
Uh-huh.
and we're just unsure of like what information we do have. Do we just have V in, current, and current?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
do we
all
even
you
have the current?
What's that?
Do we even have, like, for question number 3, if you don't know what the potential is on the other side of the resistor, we're not sure what we have. Like, do we have the current going into the resistor in the first place?
You have control of VN and IN. That's a good point. I should have said that.
Okay.
What's the same about the graph for question 1 and graph for question 2?
Slope.
Exactly.
Is that it? No.
Okay. Not sure what's happening here. I see weird numbers popping up. Oh, I see. I see. That's from the next section. So I'm going to call everybody back.
Okay.
Sounds like a good plan.
Cool.
Okay.
Good talking to you.
Back.
Oh, you could leave the breakout room.
No, everyone's coming to our breakout room.
Okay. I think I'm all alone now. Oh, I need to leave breakout room.
Damn, look at this.
Wait,
Okay.
are you in the 3 to 4, Sean?
Yeah, there's some people that are already joined up from the 3 to 4.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay.
You're welcome to come to either section. Okay. So your graph for question 1. I didn't actually write up the solutions here, but your graph for question 1, that how did you find that graph? So you have control of V in and I in. So how would you find that graph? You have V, I.
Straight line.
You just pretty much pick a V and see what the I is and pick another V and see what that I is. And if you drew out the whole graph, it would look like that. What's the difference when you had 5 volts on the other side of your resistor?
Does it get shifted to the right? The line?
It shifted to the right.
Yeah.
Okay. If you put 0 current through that resistor, what would the voltage be?
Be -5 or 0 current or 0 voltage.
Oh, I see. Okay, I get it. I was thinking I had to think. Okay, perfect. Okay, so and then the third one is come up with an equation. What's the common thing between these two graphs?
The slope.
The slope. So what equation did you get for your resistor?
Yeah. Would be
Is it the V over I?
Wait, I'm in a separate room. I'm not out in the main room, am I?
not
It booted me back into the main room.
We're all in the main room, I think.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, so what kind of equation did you get?
Would it just be V over I? Or the delta,
I.
the change in voltage over the change in current.
Yeah. So you'd take 1 voltage and you'd find you'd pick your voltage, find the current. So like your V1 minus V2 and your whatever current for that V1 minus, and you can figure out the resistor. Okay, so that's point 1, and then on Friday we'll continue this. Any questions? I know we went over a little bit. I always do.
All good.
All good? All right.
So are we going over part 3, the number 3 on next class, or?
Yeah, we'll keep going. There's 5 different pages that I made up.
Oh, okay.
Just as a question, Professor. So Is the class pretty much just going to be laid out as we should watch the videos before class and then we kind of just ask you as we're in lecture, or?
Well, I'm going to do, I just, when we did breakout rooms for the lab and things like that, I didn't feel like people were getting much out of that. So I've changed that a little bit. So we're going to, what's interesting at this point, you have enough knowledge and skills to actually derive all the equations we see this quarter and figure out how all of these circuits are working. So what I'm going to try to do is have you actually work out the math. This first part is really most of the equations that we're going to use the entire quarter will have most of them done when we go through the next three worksheets. So we'll go into a breakout and you try to figure it out, and then we'll come back, answer that worksheet, and then go on to the next one.
Cool.
Okay. So yeah, there's lecture and then there's worksheets that'll go on all quarter. So to tell you the truth, just because a lot of things that I thought might work well didn't work, there's a lot up in the air. I'm just trying to figure out what's a good way to make the class worthwhile.
Okay, thank you.
Professor, I had another question. The 307 review assignment is due tonight, correct?
Yes.
And then is there anything else that we have to do?
No, it's just if you are comfortable with the ideas on that, then you're ready to go for 308.
Okay, sweet. Thank you.
Anything else?
Just another question about, so do we have any other new information regarding that no credit stuff, or is that still just kind of up in the air?
We talked about it again today, and we're, as you can imagine, since we don't agree on anything, we're really split. There's like half of the people want to just make all classes credit, no credit, and then there's about half and a little slice that wants to make it. Oh, how about this? Yeah, so there's a few people that just want to make it all credit, no credit. There's another few people that want to give you the choice. But then there's an argument between those people whether you have to decide at the beginning of the quarter or you can decide at the end of the quarter. And then there's a group that wants half of the units to be credit, no credit. And then there's the people that just want to give you 4 units of whatever you want to pick to be no credit, no credit. But at least, you know, some of the classes, you may have that option. I'm just not clear on how that's going to go.
What group are you in?
I feel like all of you are dealing with all sorts of stuff that you've never had to deal with. The instructors are doing the same. Really hard to do quizzes. I think credit, no credit is fine. But I know there's some people that are trying to get into grad school, and also for internships, they need to get their grades up, and that would remove their ability to improve their GPA. I'm kind of like, you know, the option of making it all credit, no credit, but if you need the grades, then we'll do something about that and get you grades. What's your preference?
I wouldn't be opposed to credit, no credit. I understand that it would be helpful to get a good grade and take the credit for that. But like you were saying, and I appreciate that, it's with all of this stuff up in the air, it's a little nerve-wracking to think about.
Yeah.
I know GEs right now you have until the last day of class to pick if you're doing credit, no credit, and that seems like a decent compromise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I feel like in that way, that would allow students who need the better grade to be, you know, trying to get it all quarter, and the people who still wanted to have no credit could just have it until the end, you know.
So you like the option to have it, have you be able to select at the end?
Yeah, because like if you're trying to get your grade up and then suddenly in the middle of the quarter you get sick or someone that in your family gets sick and your whole quarter goes a little wonky, you have the option to just take credit, no credit, and just pass through as best you can.
Okay, nobody brought that up at the meeting. I'll bring that up. Yeah, that I think the instructors, to tell you the truth, they don't want to have to keep grades all quarter if it just pass fail. I think it was a little bit of laziness that where they wanted to make you decide right at the beginning of the quarter.
Yeah. Also, I feel like it should be students' choice whether it should be credit or no credit to an extent, because while some courses you could definitely decide, like if some people are just trying their absolute hardest for the first couple of weeks and then like later it's like credit or no credit versus the kid who's been like slacking a little bit and like that's the same grade, shouldn't really count towards it, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't understand. I not that I don't agree. I didn't understand what he meant.
You may have your mic muted.
Thank you. There's still a lot of people here, so if you came to the first section and you want to stay for the second section, you're totally welcome. Like making my head disappear, right? If you didn't hear that. I worked on an elder care group before I came to Cal Poly, and most of the people in the research group worked on computer vision. And I don't know if you've heard the saying that if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. But every single problem that came to us, they all wanted to solve it with some computer vision solution. So they wanted to do fall detection using a camera. And they had these cameras kind of blurred so people would have privacy in their rooms. But when somebody in dark pants stood against a wall that was dark, like their bottom half of their body would disappear and they would just be a floating torso. Let's see. We've got 22 people. We had 40. This is about the right number if you add up both of them. 19. Oh, we're going away. Actually, I'm going to kill the breakout room. Oh, it's still there. So, Sean. See, how did I kill this? I don't know how to kill this. No. Try. Let me try one thing before we start class. Let me try to do something here. How do I do that? Oh, shoot. I'll figure it out later. Okay. Yeah, I'm over time. So, hi, everyone. Okay. What's you have? 16 people? Okay. So there's a number of people that aren't here. Today's topic is so I'm gonna talk for a while, and then we'll move into breakout rooms and start doing some problems. Over today and Friday, you will actually figure out most of the equations that you need for the rest of the quarter, a good portion of them. So let's start out with the course overview. And how many of you, if you use the gestures, forget my window changed, so I don't see the gestures on it. Remote control polls, manage. Okay. Yeah, how many of you have seen the video on the 3-stage amplifier? You can do a thumbs up or something. Thumbs down. Okay, so this is going to be a lot of that lecture, a lot of that video, but that video is actually the story of the entire 308 class. So today I wanted to give you that picture so when we talk about topics during the course of the quarter, you know what part of the amplifier we're talking about. So let's start, right? So let's just do a little bit of background first. For an ideal op amp, what are the 3 characteristics that are generally, brought up when you talk about an ideal op amp?
The 2 input voltages are equal.
Okay, so that is a what's the word I want? It's how another this is another way to say a rule about ideal op amps. What's the rule that goes with V plus equals V minus?
The infinite input. No, there's 0 input current.
Okay, that's actually part of another rule. So I plus equals I minus equals 0. I'm looking for the rules that actually go over on the left side here.
Infinite input impedance.
Yes, so when you say no current is going in, that means that the input impedance of your circuit is infinite. That means that there's no path for current to go into your circuit through. Okay, what about, what's another rule?
There's the output resistance is 0.
Okay. What does that actually mean?
To go short or?
Okay, short is an important word. Short means that, what's that look like to current? Is that an easy path or a hard path?
Easy.
Actually, that's a bad way to say it. Let me change that. Can you say something? Can you say that in a different way?
Output current is infinite?
Yeah, you can have as much current out. So if, let's say you have your amplifier. So here's your amplifier. It's supposed to be an op amp there. I just kind of do it badly. And you connect it to some other circuit, and that other circuit asks for current. So you have a V out from your amplifier. If this next circuit asks for current, what happens to V out?
it would drop, or it should, but if you have an R out of 0, it won't.
Yes, exactly. V out doesn't change when current goes to next circuit. Okay, we're still missing. Missing this one. Any guesses on that?
Isn't that the open loop gain is infinite?
Yes. And we'll get to the details of that a little bit later. Really later, like week 8 or so. Start talking about that. That's the just a little touch of 302 stuff. Get there. But if you have an op amp and there's any difference between the two inputs, if you have a gain of infinity, that means this is going to go, the output is going to go to infinity or negative infinity. So you, in an ideal op amp, you can't have a difference between the inputs and still have the math work. That's the real big thing. They, in real life, they are slightly different. There is a difference between the two. But in the math that you've done so far with ideal op amps, the math just wouldn't work if there was a difference between the inputs. So, okay, so these are the 3 requirements of an ideal op amp. There's another one. This one has 2 inputs. So just kind of as an additional thing. And as an additional thing, you need a differential input. You've got your non-inverting, oops, the screen's doing weird stuff. You've got your non-inverting input and you've got your inverting input. So you need that differential input. And then you have all pieces of an ideal op amp. Okay, so let's start drawing here. And what we're going to look at today is kind of the basic structure of an op amp, of the op amps that we'll build in this class. And let's start with this circuit. And this would be your V in, would be your V out. Here's your R. So first of all, let's name this thing. Right. So my way of naming stuff is realizing that the transistor has 3 terminals. And a terminal that is either V in or V out gets ignored. So which terminal does V in go to? I don't have the chat up. Add the chat.
The base?
The base. So it's not a common base. Which terminal is V out connected to?
Collector.
Collector, so it's not a common collector. What's left?
Emitter.
Emitter. So this is actually a common emitter amplifier. Okay. So from last week, or not last week, but last lecture, when what is the output of a transistor?
Current.
Current, exactly. So the transistor right here, it is not directly determining this voltage right here. It just generates current. And any current going through the transistor also has to go through the resistor. So it's actually the current going through the resistor that determines V out, and that's going to be your VDD or your VCC minus I times R. Okay, for a BJT or a MOSFET, how fast does the current change? If I change V in, how much does the current change? Assuming the active region of operation.
It would be a lot because it's an exponential.
Exactly. So it's exponential for BJTs. And what about MOSFETs?
Also exponential.
It looks like it's quadratic. It's a squared, but it's also really big. So just a small change in V in makes the current change a lot. So you've got a big current change across your resistor. And does that make V out move a lot or a little? You change the current a whole bunch across the resistor. What happens to the voltage across the resistor?
It drops faster.
Drops a lot. Yeah, so this thing right here, exponential change in current, that current goes across the resistor, and exponential change in V out. And that is really the core to gain for voltage gain amplifier. So this, let's do one more question here. If I move V in up, what happens to the current? Does it increase or decrease?
Increase.
Increase. So you get increase in current. What happens to V out?
Decrease.
Goes down. So on this amplifier right here, when V in goes up, V out goes down. So this is an inverting amplifier. So good gain because of the exponential current change. This is a really good gain amplifier. But let's look at something here. Gotta move stuff again on my window. So let's say I have another circuit out here, and now I've got a nice amplifier here, and I'm putting that amplifier out to, say, a speaker or whatever it might be. And let's say this pulls current. Remember, I think we talked about, I can't remember whether it was lab or lecture, but where does that current come from?
Is it still from the transistor?
It's coming through this wire, so it is coming from this node, but if you have current, which direction is current going through your amplifier?
From the collector to the emitter?
Yeah, it's going this direction. So you wouldn't be getting current from the amp. You wouldn't be getting current from the transistor. Where is it coming from?
Resistance in the load?
Yeah, exactly. So it comes down through here. And actually, let me go back just one step here. If you want a big gain, do you want a big R or a little r? Maybe I talked about that in the other section last time, but not this one. You want big gain. So if you want V out to move a lot when the current just changes a little, do you want a big R or a little r? I see.
Big R.
What's that?
Sorry, we're in the same room.
Okay. Yeah, so you like to have a big R, because that's going to multiply a small change in current multiplied by a big number makes V out change a lot. Okay, but let's say this circuit is asking for current. That current's coming through the resistor. What happens to V out? Does it stay constant? No, yeah. So if you connect this particular circuit to another circuit that asks for current, that current's going to go through the resistor and it's going to change V out. It's going to mess up your V out. And when you connect to a circuit that pulls current and V out changes, that's considered a high R out. Again, when you connect a circuit to another circuit and it changes the voltage on the output, then the first circuit is considered a high R out circuit. So if you change the current across a big resistor, do you agree the voltage changes a lot? Yes. If you have a very small resistor and you do the same current change across it, do you agree that the voltage change is going to be much smaller? Yes. So that's when you hear high R out or low R out, that's all it means. It means if I pull current off of this circuit, does V out change a lot or does it change a little? And then if you go back to the low R out definition here, that means that V out doesn't change when current goes to the next circuit. Okay, so this is kind of a failure as an op amp. But it turns out that with high gain, remember this R right here, if it's big, you get a good gain. If it's small, you don't. Let me say it a little bit differently. If it's big, then V out moves a lot and you get a big gain. But if this R is very small, then V out doesn't move very much and you don't get a good gain. So to make a good amplifier, this R has to be really big. But then as soon as you connect it up to something, now V out is going to wander. So this circuit as it is not going to work. So let's try to improve this a little bit. Any questions on the common emitter and that it has a high R out? Okay, let's go on to redraw this. Turns out there's absolutely no way to fix that. The way you fix it is you add another stage. We'll change this to Vx now. Now this is, I'm going to write that as CE for common emitter. And that has good gain. And that is why it's called the gain stage. Okay, but it has that high R out and that's just wrong for an ideal op amp. So we have to somehow make the R out look small. So I'm going to add this stage, and this is known as an output stage. There's a few different ways to build an output stage. This is one of the most common. This is also considered an amplifier. What kind of amplifier is this? Using the naming rules. Like if you look at the transistor, it has 3 terminals. You X out the V in and the V out terminals, and whatever's left, that's the name of the thing.
Common collector.
Exactly. So V in's going to the base, so it's not common base. V out's at the emitter, not common emitter. What's left is the collector. So this is called a common collector. And they do call it an amplifier. It doesn't really have, it has a gain of 1. So you usually think of an amplifier as something that makes things bigger, but this is considered an amplifier. It just happens to have a gain of 1. Okay. So let's see now. Let's do our evil circuit again over here. Let's connect that up, and let's say it's asking for current. So let's ask the same question. Where's that current coming from if you connect up that circuit that sucked current before? Where's the current come from?
Transistor.
Transistor. So it still has to come from the supply because the current is going through your amplifier in that direction. So it still has to come from the supply. What's the easiest way for a transistor to change its current? Thinking about the current equation, what's the easiest way for it to turn up its current?
Change VBE.
I think somebody said it.
Change VBE.
Yeah, VBE. You just change VBE a little bit, but since this is exponential, it can change the current a lot. So just a small change in this voltage right here can change the current a lot. So this voltage is determined by the previous circuit. So this one's going to be constant. But if something asks for some more current, now this says, oh goodness, I've got to conduct more current. So I'm gonna drop this node, the voltage on this node, to increase my VBE, and now I'll have enough current for the resistor and for the circuit over here. Okay. How much does it have to drop this node to accommodate more current? Not much. I see somebody mouthing it.
A little bit.
Very little, very little. And so this node right here, even if this circuit over here asks for more current, this node hardly changes at all. So if you're pulling current off of it and it doesn't affect the voltage, hey birdies, once again, I think it's just this hour that I think you get the serenade, because they were good the last hour.
They like us too much.
I have a headset. I just haven't gone in to pick it up. I'll pick it up tomorrow. So Friday you may not have to listen to that. But yeah, so yeah, so V out doesn't move very much. So is this considered a high R out or a low R out?
Low R out.
Low R out. So this circuit right here has a low R out. And you can get this down to like 5 ohms, 3 ohms. You can get it down to very low resistance. Okay. So we couldn't get a low R out with our gain stage. By putting a second stage on it, now we have a low R out. Okay, is that good? Okay. One more thing about this is you have Vx right here. Let's use a different color just so it's clear. What can you approximate this voltage right here as? What can you approximate that voltage as in general?
VBE on.
VBE on. So it's Vx at the base, and you know the emitter for an NPN is lower. So this is actually Vx minus VBE on. This is a good approximation for your V out. I'm going a little bit slower than the last class, but let's do something here. And we had the definition of gain. We did that, right? Gain. I thought we did the definition of gain. I guess we didn't. So let's write this down over here. What's the official definition of gain?
Change in V out over change in V in.
Change in V out over change in V in. Not really good. So the change part is really important. So let's look at Vx. Let's say I have Vx of 3 volts What's going to be my V out?
Three minus VBE on.
Exactly. And for today, we'll do 3 volts minus VBE on. And let's say VBE on is something like 0.6 or something like that. Then this would be 2.4 volts. And then let's say I change Vx to, I've changed Vn and Vx changes to 2 volts. What would be my new V out?
$1.4.
So let's find the gain for that. It's delta V out over delta Vn, and V out goes from 2.4 volts to 1.4 volts. And then what's Vn change from the input to this stage?
3 to 2.
3 volts minus 2 volts. So what's the gain of this thing?
1.
1. Exactly. So you really only care about the change in the voltage here. But this gain of 1 says that the change in voltage at Vx is the same as the change in voltage at V out. So if you use that in a gain equation, it would look like the same value. It's the difference that's important, not the actual voltage itself. That make sense? So I did talk about a couple more things here. Common collector. This is also, since there is a level shift on this, V out is VB on lower. So this is also called a level shifter. If Vx is 3, then V out is 2.4. It's shifted it down. The change in the input is the same as the change in the output. So it's kind of like it's also called a buffer. And it has one more name, and that's actually how we're using it. We had a circuit with a high R out. The common emitter has a high R out, and we're slapping this stage on there to show a low R out, and that's called impedance transforming. So if you have a circuit with a high R out, and a high R out means you generally can't connect it to another circuit, and you can just throw one of these common collectors on there, and transformer, is it going to fit? You can throw one of these on there and it will provide as much current as the next circuit wants to get, and it'll protect V out for you. Okay, so now we've got good gain and we've got a low R out. What's the last spec? What else do we need? I see people talking like. So what's the last spec we need here? We've got the good gain. We've got a low R out. What's left?
RN is infinity.
High R in, and then we also need this differential input. Do you remember any circuits from 307 that had like 2 inputs? Do you remember any circuits that have 2 inputs? In many of your 307 classes, they might have treated it as a single input circuit. But just look familiar. I'm going to leave these named a little bit fuzzily. What's that in 307?
ECO.
Yeah, echo or peckle in this case, since it's positive. In this class, it's called the exact same circuit, differential pair. And a differential pair, I'm not going to justify it now. We'll spend a whole week on this later in the quarter, but we're going to deal with balanced inputs, and a balanced input means that if this input right here goes up,
Oh, yeah.
then this one will go down by the same amount. So a balanced input, if one side goes up by a certain amount, the other side has to go down by the same amount. And it makes the math easier, so that's why we do it mostly. Okay. And again, something that I'm not going to justify here, but when that happens, when you use a balanced input, where the inputs move equally in opposite directions, this node doesn't move. So here's my actual question. If this node doesn't move, what kind of circuit does that look like right there?
A reference or
Is it open?
Look at, think about amplifiers. What kind of amplifier does that look like?
common emitter?
Common emitter, yes. So this behaves, each side behaves like a separate common emitter, except one input's going up and the other input's going down. And what do you remember about common emitters? The input versus their output. Do they go in the same direction, or is it non-inverting or is it inverting?
Inverting.
Inverting, yes. So if I move this side down, what happens to this node? Goes up, yes. Okay, so I'm going to connect this up. I haven't completely named the inputs quite yet. Let me ask one more question first. We'll do something like that. This V in and V out. In an ideal op amp, if I move V in up, what happens to V out? Does it go up or down?
Down. Maybe up.
Yes. The inverting and non-inverting inputs give you a hint how they're related to the output. So I'm giving an input to the non-inverting input. So that means it goes in the same direction as V out. So let's see what happens here. I've said the left side goes up and the right side goes down. And you said if the right side goes down, then this node goes up. If this node goes up, what happens to this point? Does it go up or down? Yes, because it's inverting. So if the input goes up, output goes down. What about this stage? V out equals Vx minus VBE on. If this node goes down, what happens to V out?
Goes down.
It goes down. Okay, so to find the non-inverting input, it has two inputs here. To find the non-inverting input, you see which input goes in the same direction as your output here. Does that make sense? So which input is your non-inverting input? Is it the right side or left side of the diff pair?
The right side.
So this is plus and this is minus. And now you have a complete three-stage op amp. And Again, the reason why I'm doing this here is to give you a picture for the whole quarter. We're going to go through and we're going to make each one of these stages better. And you know, for the input stage, it needs a high RN. So we're going to look at how to increase RN for your diff pair. For the gain stage, you want a lot of gain. You like a lot of gain for a good op amp. So we're going to figure out how to increase the gain for the gain stage. And then for the output stage, again, we like a low R out. This is actually about as good as it gets. But we will look at the circuit again and do the math for it. Okay. Yes, and let me add just a couple of things. This, as mentioned, this is called the output stage, just for its position in the op amp. It has its own name as common collector for the kind of amplifier, but where it's located in the op amp, this is an output stage. This is considered a gain stage. Stage. And then this stage right here, what do you think it is? If that's an output stage, what do you think this the diff pair is?
Input stage.
Input stage. You'll see some op amps where the gain stage and input stage are combined, but those are pretty hard to design. So generally there's these three stages. And there's op amps that have a different configuration. We won't look at them this quarter. Might in the last week, just a little bit. If I'm just so unsure how the timing for this class is. But in general, if you get an off-the-shelf op amp, it's going to be a three-stage amplifier like this. And again, the goals for the course are to look at each one of these stages and improve it and understand how they work really well. And then at the end, build your own op amp. Okay. So let's see. If there's no questions on that, there's only how many people here? There's 15 people. Yeah. I'd like to have you break into groups for future reference. You can send me your preferences for groups if you have it. But I think today I'll just do a random breakout group. On Canvas, at the very bottom of your page, you have a week 1 lecture 2A. In your group, go through and try to answer those questions. And we'll continue this on Friday. Probably spend the whole class on Friday continuing down through the last handout, which you can't see yet. And that's where you will basically have derived all the equations for the course. A lot of the equations for the course. So go ahead and find that document. I think everybody should be able to see it. And I'm just going to throw you into random breakout groups. Is that okay?
Sound good.
Okay. If I can find it. Breakout rooms. Can you see the menu that I brought down now, or is it hidden from you?
Hidden.
Okay. So here we go. We don't need 11 breakout groups. Well, now you're all in the same group. So it's okay. And did you all get Okay, looks like you all got invites. Okay. Emil, if you're there, your group headed out to breakout room 3. people back?
Yeah, we weren't sure
So-
whether we just come back or not.
Oh, yes, you're always welcome. I know a math teacher at Atascadero High School named DeLuca.
Yeah, I had her for calculus.
But no relation?
No, we're not related.
Okay. I'm not sure how many people are back. It looks like breakout room 1 isn't back yet. Oh, yep. So hello, breakout room 1. On back. Okay. Then I don't
pop up on your screen, I think.
What's that? Oh yeah. There's somebody that I don't recognize that in it. Zacharias, are you in this class?
No, I was in the earlier section.
Oh, okay.
I came because I actually had a question. I thought I would pop in real quick at the end of class, but if you're
Absolutely. Yes.
you can keep going.
Okay, so but I'm already a minute over. Can we have another minute, or is that you have to run?
No,
off?
that's fine. Yeah, I can wait as long as it takes.
Okay. So all I'm assuming that your first graph looked something like that. Everybody agree with that one? Okay. What did your second graph look like?
That, but shifted down 5 volts.
Yeah, but shifted down by 5 volts. Exactly. So when there's 5 volts on there, that means there's no volts across your resistor, so you have 0 current. And what was your equation that you came up with?
R equals delta V over delta I.
Exactly. Yeah, so you have to put some voltage on there and measure the current, then put a different voltage on there and measure the current. And then you get, then you can figure out the size of the resistor. So we're going to take that and then apply it to a transistor on Friday. And then we're going to come up with the equation for that. Well, you are. I'm just going to sit back and watch mostly, but so any questions on that? Okay. I got no questions. So I'll hang around. I made up a poll to ask about office hours, but I forgot to post it in the first section. So maybe I'll make a questionnaire or I'll send out something, try to figure out what office hours are good. I figured after class might be good, before class. Before class, I end up with meetings up. Anyways, I'll send out a poll. All right. Okay. Thanks. Thank you all. If you have questions, I'll hang around for a while.
I just have like a weird question, but can you see what we're doing in our breakout rooms? Like,
No,
can you like
not at all.
cycle through? Oh, okay.
If you don't call me, I can't. So you can do whatever you want in there.
That's what I was kind of wondering. Yeah, that was my question.
I can't hear you or anything.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question about something on the homework that was confusing me and my grader, I guess you could say, the one who's had before. It was involving let's say you have like a simple like resistor and BJT set up to where they're an inverter. And one of the questions you asked was what would a large R like size resistor or a small size resistor cause there to for V out to change more? And I thought a large resistor would cause there to be more of a change because there would be less current required for there to be like, V out could be specified as like whatever the voltage source VDD is minus IC times the resistor if it was a BJT. and a larger size R would cause there to be a larger change in like or more of a change in V out with less of a change in current. So I'm just not, maybe I'm not understanding the question as you're asking it, because I put large R and my grader said small r, but then she talked to me again and said she's not very sure. So we're confused on it together.
I like how you think. I like your thinking. I like your process.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you.
Good job, Zach.
I appreciate
So
it.
it would be
Sean.
large R.
Yes. If you're throwing
Okay.
current across something, if you change the current by an amp, then you just have to think about it. A lot of these questions, if you put numbers in, it will make it clear.
Okay. Yeah, because I had the exact same scenario, so I was gonna ask that same question.
Yeah, and you can see from, I think my screen's still being shared. Yeah, still being shared. You can see that a large R, yes, it makes V out move more, so you have higher gain, but then it also makes, when the second circuit pulls current off your circuit, it makes it worse. So there's a trade-off there.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But we wouldn't have to worry about that if we like went through the entire process of gain stage and output stage and all that stuff that we learned today, where we decrease R out, right?
Yes, that common collector is really magic. So if you do a senior project and you put a couple of chips together and they work fine by themselves, but then when you connect them, they fail, that's probably because the second circuit is pulling current. If you just throw a common collector between the two, that generally fixes the problem.
Nice. All right, thank you. Yeah, that answered everything. It's the last
Oh.
part of homework I needed to answer.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Have a good one.
All right, see you later.